We've had a couple of lazy days, but now it's time for some more adventure. We'll be doing a couple of different gravel roads today. And this is where we're going. We're leaving Triabunna and we're heading to Deloraine. But the daily maintenance needs to be done first, so I use my custom-made little bike stand for Wendy's bike so I can oil her chain. This stand's proved to be quite a winner. So quick and easy to get the back wheel off the ground so I can oil the chain. The weather's a bit overcast, but it's not raining, so all is good. I love these roads that follow along the water. With the road curving ahead, the water, the blue sky and the white clouds. What could be more perfect? As we glide along, I wonder what the peasants are doing today. Probably digging up muck and complaining about the violence inherent in the system. Sorry about that, bit of rambling. And a Monty Python reference. Sticking with the Monty Python theme, these roads with the hedges along them really remind me of England, or what I've seen of it anyway. Oh dear. Windy, tight, twisty roads followed by open, green countryside. I'm really not getting sick of this yet. We ride past a number of little farms, with old sheds and buildings still on the property. And I think to myself, it's a long way to the shop if you want a sausage roll from this place. Unfortunately today involves a bit of main road riding, but I haven't bothered putting it in the video. The historic town of Ross is just off the highway, so we stop in and have a bit of a look. This bridge is made out of sandstone and it was completed in 1836, and it's the third oldest in Australia. The wind is still blowing pretty strong, but I risked putting the drone up anyway. On the road again, and in no time we're heading into Deloraine. Deloraine's a pretty, neat and clean little town, right on the river. We're staying here for 2 nights, but getting our priorities right, we find a bakery to stop for lunch. And it's another cracker. Beautiful, excellent food. As the weather continues to be windy and rainy at night, we're motelling it again. The room looks out on the Western Tiers. But as usual, the weather is starting to turn ugly towards evening. But I take a chance and put the drone up anyway. It's a new day and we're doing a day ride down to Liffey Falls, looping back up to Westbury and back to our motel at Deloraine. We've got some well-maintained gravel road that heads into Liffey Falls. The day is very pretty after the rain last night and everything smells fresh and clean. We've got the road to ourselves, so we indulge in a bit of selfie action. And as you'll agree, I look so much better with my helmet on. We're approaching the turn-off to a more minor road now that goes down to Liffey. There are sections of this road that are quite steep and narrow, and I'm impressed that Wendy's handling the roads quite well. Neither of us are big walkers, but fortunately the track down to Liffey Falls is not very long. The falls are more of a series of smaller cascades, rather than one big drop. But it's worth it just for the walk in. It's very pretty, with all these huge ferns that we walk under. Who would have believed that such a cute riding buddy would have put up with me for 45 years? Happy anniversary, hun. We've seen the sights and now it's time to trudge back up the hill, back to the bikes. It seems that there's no gain without pain even here. We've reached the bottom of the loop and now we're heading back up north towards Westbury, where we believe there's a steam museum. I don't know what it is about gravel roads, but they just seem more adventure-y. But I love these small back roads, whether they're sealed or unsealed, with numerous little flowing streams to go across. But then the road pops out of the bush and into farmland again. So we stop and have a look at a couple of cute little lambs. Right, we're at the Steam Museum and it's open. This is completely run by volunteers. And as you probably guess, The volunteers tend to be old blokes with some sort of engineering background. I spent as much time talking to the bloke on duty as I did looking around the museum. Both were very fascinating. And while it's called a steam museum, as you can see, there are other machines here as well. I find the design and the engineering that goes into these machines completely fascinating, particularly when you realise the rudimentary materials and tools that were used to build this stuff. The Massey Ferguson revolutionised farming after World War II in Australia. Their lightweight and their 3-point linkage saw them being adopted by just about every farm in Australia. Our trip has not been without its small drama. This time we found that one of Wendy's front engine bolts had sheared off. It was the one on the lower crash bar mount, and it screws into the engine casing. I won't go into all the things that I tried to do to fix it and couldn't, but this is what we finally came up with. The bolt was broken off in the engine casing itself, and an easy out didn't remove it. Ended up having to drill out the bolt right through the case and then put a nut and bolt in it, which is a much better option anyway. It's a new day and we're heading to Stanley. But as you can see, we're not exactly taking the direct route. The road takes us through tiny places like Mole Creek and Chudley. It's these minor roads in Tasmania that you really need to seek out because they are the perfect riding roads. We'd be lucky to see a half a dozen cars in the whole day, and they're all locals anyway. The road's just a series of up and down and left and right, through farming land and into forest. It's tempting to concentrate on the destination, but it's the journey that gives the greatest pleasure. It's absolutely frigid here and blowing a gale, but we stop because there's a nice view back to the Cradle Mountain ranges, and you can see it's got a lot of snow on it. There was snow down to 500 metres, so we had to avoid some of the roads that we planned to ride on this time. It's fortunate that a lot of the road is down in the forest, and the trees block out most of the strong wind. We've arrived at Rosebery. We need to fill up here because we didn't have enough fuel to get all the way today. We had to pass our turn-off to come down to Rosebery, so now we're heading back up over the mountain to our turn-off that goes across to Corinna. Or is that pronounced Corinna? I can't remember. If you stay on this road, it does a big loop out to the west and then comes back down to Zion. But we'll be heading off about halfway and turning up north to Corinna. This is just one of the dams that is part of the hydroelectric infrastructure. Time to turn off and head for Corinna. This is quite an adventure route. The road's narrow, very windy, starts out as bitumen, but then goes to gravel. All the roads around here have got this same white quartz type gravel. While the road is very well maintained, the surface tends to be a bit ball bearingy, so it's fairly slippery, so we've got to take our time, particularly on some of these sharp corners. A small privately operated ferry is going to take us across the Pieman River to Corinna itself. The ferry will only fit 2 cars at a time, so we wait a fair while before we actually get our turn. Not that that matters one little bit. As you can see, the river's not all that wide, but it still costs us $13 each for the bikes. Not that we're complaining, it's only money, and besides there's really no other alternative. A few short minutes and we're on the other side, which allows us to keep going north. There's a cafe, restaurant and some accommodation here, but I expect it's reasonably expensive. There are 2 options here. One heads straight up to Arthur River on the west coast, and the other loops around through Waratah. We're running out of daylight, and the Waratah route has less gravel road, so we can make better time, so that's the way we're going to go. While this route isn't quite as adventurous as going straight up the west coast, it probably is a better riding road altogether. It's got some fantastic gravel roads, and then some really nice twisty bitumen road as well, as it goes through Savage River and then Waratah. But there are only about 2 roads out in this western coast of Tasmania, and we really feel alone, which of course is just what we want. And we get the same feeling when we're out west in the wide open spaces of the outback. The gravel ends at Savage River, but the adventure road doesn't. It's a narrow road, but it's well maintained, and there are lots of corners and scenery to be soaked in. Waratah is a pretty town with manicured grass and parklands, with a swift flowing river flowing right through the middle of it. But there are not too many amenities. There's the pub and the servo, and that's it. But I guess, what more do you need? Well, maybe a waterfall that falls down the mountain and goes into a hole. Yep, it falls into a cave and then comes out further down. One of the benefits of this road is that it goes through Hallion Gorge. If you're going to Tasmania on a bike, don't miss this road. It's just one perfect corner after another as it goes down to the gorge and then winds its way back up again. We're staying at Stanley for the next 3 nights. Stanley is up on the northwest corner of Tasmania and incorporates a spit of land called the Nut. In the next and final episode, we'll have a look round Stanley, go for a ride in the rain, and then head to the ferry.